watching Inside the Gilliverse, talking all things Breaking Bad, El Camino, and Better Call Saul. Brought to you by Stewart Travel Guitars. See the incredible stowaway travel guitar at stewartguitars.com. Also brought to you by Idea Bench, makers of hot rod-inspired pedal boards and pedal board accessories at ideabench.com. Microphones for Inside the Gilliverse are brought to you by Rode Microphones. Now please welcome your hosts, Tom Schnauz and Eric Broadbent.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for episode 5 of Inside the Gilliverse, where we're talking all things Breaking Bad, El Camino, and Better Call Saul. My name is Eric Broadbent. It comes with great pleasure to welcome my co-host, writer, director, producer, and this 2020 Emmy Award nominee, Mr. Tom Schnauz. Welcome back, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing good, Eric. Thank you so much. Of course, we have to mention today is 19th anniversary of 9/11. I cannot believe that it's been so long, such a horrible, sad day in our history. But look, we're everybody's keeping it together as best they can. Things are really crazy right now with COVID and just we're here in California. We got fires going on. It just seems like it's the end of the world constantly. But everybody stay strong. And we're gonna try to do a good show for you tonight. And we have a very special guest, one of my favorite guys. I mean, I can't stress for people who don't know how important the director of photography is in shooting an episode of television. I mean, it's like first of all, he's an artist. There's they describe cinematography as that old description of painting with light, and it really is artistic, but it's also like this DP has to be a field general. He's got an army under him. He's got grips. He's got gaffers. He's got camera operators, focus pullers. There's truckfuls of equipment. It's just insane, the stuff that this man has to juggle. So let's get him on camera right now. Marshall Adams, our director of photography for Better Call Saul for a couple of seasons now, since season 3. And he's just, he as a director, he and the crew make it so easy. I feel like, because everybody has nerves going into these jobs, and you're like, oh my God, am I going to screw it up? Am I going to screw it up? But you have a guy like Marshall and the crew behind you. It's like you can't fail. It's on your worst day, these guys will pick you up. So Marshall, thank you for being here.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me, you guys. Good to be here.
It is great to have you. And that's the thing, people don't realize the importance of this job. And maybe we can start right off. Actually, before I even go into the first question, I just want to wish one of our regulars here, Blasey Gardner, who is a diehard Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, El Camino fan. It's her birthday in just a few hours, so happy birthday to Blasey Gardner. She has the greatest questions as well, too. I've learned a lot about the show from her, so happy birthday. And Marshall, obviously a pleasure to have you here, and we're going to be learning a lot from you this evening. But the title of director of photography, it sounds like something that it's self-explanatory. But I think there's probably a lot more behind what the title is. And I'm sure, like a lot of cast members and crew members, they wear a lot of hats in different job descriptions. Can you kind of let the average people know what your job entails overall, as opposed to just setting up cameras and filming?
Yeah. So I would guess it would be described as, essentially being in charge of the image that eventually gets recorded or filmed, depending on what you're doing. I don't, people always assume that I'm operating cameras and that I'm in there with the camera, and I very rarely touch the camera. I have 2 camera operators. We have a whole bunch of camera assistants, and our whole department is I don't know, 9 people or something. It's a lot of going on. So, but I have the grip and electric crew who answer to me, and we do the lighting together along. Jeez. See? All right, perfect.
It's okay.
Marshall is not in the sound department, obviously.
Beautiful downtown KOP. Anyway, so so together with a lot of other artists on the set, we develop an idea and we work on it, and we fine tune it into something that we're proud of. It's but it's essentially that. It's in charge of essentially the image overall, and working with the director over what the coverage might be and stuff like that.
Fantastic. Here's a question right off the hop from our live chat viewers as well. and I believe this was during your season. It's so hard for me to remember seasons where they are. I just get so enthralled by the whole thing. And I know you came in around season 3. Arabella asked a question. She says, here's my question. How do you come up with the idea of that gorgeous shot where Jimmy and Kim are silhouetted by the glow of the glass brick wall that stands behind them? And when they get their first office, the Wexler McGill office, that was your term, wasn't it?
That was Marshall.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, sure. First off, the first 2 seasons, those smoking scenes had taken place in the parking garage, and they were very stylized and an interesting angle. So immediately, it was kind of a challenge to come up with something fun and interesting, and that we could do. That idea again, I thank God I get all the credit for this stuff, but I certainly don't come up with it all. That's for sure. But yeah, that was an idea that was kind of thrown out, and it made perfect sense. And we kind of took a look at it and went, yeah, this is going to work great. So if I'm not mistaken, too, we did that shot where we included the top of the stage where they painted in all the stars, and everybody still is convinced that was a night exterior shot, that we shot that outside.
That was incredible. Yeah, we do. I love, one of my favorite parts of this job is all the tricks, all the tricks that the audience hopefully doesn't see. And that's one of them, being on stage and being able to put in a nighttime sky with stars that looks very real. Marshall, you did a shot on 509. We had Mike with a sniper rifle on a roof, and that was also on stage. And in the background, one view, we had a green screen where we put in our own background, but another, the side view, was something you created. Can you tell us about how you did that?
Yes. So because of the sniper rifle and the distance, it kind of lent itself to some long lens stuff. So we immediately thought of being on a really long lens and throwing the background out of focus. And when we do that, and it doesn't happen very often on Saul, I love to create these kind of phony city backgrounds with little twinkle lights. And the guys actually make what we call a light bright, which was a 4x4 piece of foam core. And we're just poking holes in it and putting gel over them so they all have different colors and stuff. So we kind of build the city by poking holes in it. But so we were getting ready we were looking at the images. We were getting ready to say we were, good to go. And I realized that the stars, they don't twinkle. And it's actually been something that's bugged me forever. And I had this idea a long time ago that when you actually look out at the city and it twinkles, it's got like heat waves and things. So I've always wanted to try it, and this was a perfect opportunity. The effects guys were there with their stuff, so we asked them to bring in those sterno cans, and we put them all underneath the frame, and it basically just generated heat in between the camera, or between Jonathan and the backing, and worked out great.
That is absolutely one of my favorite things to do on set, and when you did that, I was like, oh my God, I love this job so much. There was another, we did pickup scenes for 410 with Mike and Gus talking in a car, and the view out the window was crap. And you took a bunch of Apple boxes and put them on light stands and just set them up to make them look like Santa Fe buildings. I was like, this is I love this. This looks, it's so crazy what's going on. If you look, because you can't tell, and it's amazing what you can get away with on screen.
Yeah. I mean, then there was the one I that still giggle about is the scene with Werner, is where he met his demise out there with Adam. And we were seeing the airport in the distance, and Peter happened to be on the set. And so we decided we had to somehow get rid of it. So we sent the key grip out there, and we cut this mountain range out of foam core, stuck it on stands out there, which is black. So you can see the city lights kind of over the top of it. And it literally looks like a mountain range, but it's just a big chunk of foam core. Anyway,
that's so good. That's so good.
If you want to go back many years, I saw something on Twitter the other day. Well, it's not the other day. Probably when I say the other day, it's probably a month ago. But Charlie Chaplin stuff, all of us grew up watching that kind of stuff. And, there's that one scene where, one of his fast, movies, he's kind of skateboarding, rollerblading back.
The roller skate to the edge. Yeah.
Yeah. And my whole life, I was fooled by that. And it's that depth of field with a little carpet, like he had
a matte painting. Yeah.
Wasn't that amazing? So what you're just saying right now, and look at Star Wars. I'm sure we're all Star Wars fans, what they did with, models. And it's just absolutely mind blowing what we don't know. And it's like a magician, like David Copperfield and all these people. Obviously there's some tricks. We don't know what it is. And we as audience members are just captivated in the moment. So what you're doing is great. And hearing this stuff I got goosebumps right now.
That's awesome. No, it's a lot of fun. You try an idea and see what works. And we are firm believers, and that's one of the things that I love about working with this group of people is great ideas can come from anywhere. So and the door's kind of always open to receive them. And so I mean, like the ant thing, I have to commend my my loader, Jesse Heidenfeld, for finding that lens that even made that possible. It was like, and all the guys. I mean, it's incredible where the ideas come from. So
there's some good questions coming in again as well too, and this is more photography based. This is from Mrs. Ignacio Varga. Marshall. So I don't even know we had a Mrs. yet, but we have one. I think we had Mando on the show, and that was absolutely crazy with the girls. But anyway, and the guys too. But she says, what originally got you interested in photography? That's a great question.
Oh, that's very funny. So I grew up in Topanga Canyon, which was kind of a hippie-laden area north of Los Angeles, almost to Malibu, but nowhere near the money. My father had a flatbed Super 8 editor that he had available to me and a camera. And so there wasn't a whole lot to do there anyway. So, and we started skateboarding. And so I started shooting skateboard movies. And then that kind of led into making little films and things that I was cutting together. But bizarrely, my father's an architect, and David Chase had bought a house that my father had designed. And they became friends, and he was a staff writer on the Rockford Files at the time.
Oh, wow.
Shows you how long ago that was.
Yeah,
and he invited me down to the set, and I was just completely, the script supervisor let me time the takes with her stopwatch, and I was like, I thought this was the greatest thing ever. So although I got to go home like after 6 or 8 hours, I didn't realize how late they were. But anyway, so yeah, I was completely hooked after that point.
That's amazing. What was your first job on a professional film set? What was your first role?
As a PA, I was on a commercial. It was a car commercial at A&R Studios, the old A&R Studios. I remember getting yelled at by the camera operator to go get his breakfast.
I was started off as a parking PA. My first job on a film set was The King of New York.
Oh, wow.
Doing lockdown in Times Square. And I remember the AD just hating my guts because I didn't know what I was doing. And I had my backpack, and he was like, get rid of the damn backpack. I was like, in Times Square, where am I going to put it?
You don't want to drop a backpack in Times Square. Yeah, don't leave it unattended. Here's a couple more questions coming in from the chat as well, too. This is from Nat Romero. And this is going to be good because we're talking some gear here. It says, Marshall, could you talk about the change of look from season 5 compared to the previous ones? I heard in the podcast that you're using the new camera. Why this change in the middle of the series?
One of the things that we get to enjoy is that the guys are always kind of open to some new ideas and kind of expanding and improving the look. The limitations that we had that were around at the time to shoot 4K when they started the show, which was very early on in 4K delivery, there weren't that many cameras available. So, and they've gotten better and progressed along. So this was the first season that Aeroflex had a 4K camera that was available to use. So the Alexa was, and interestingly enough, Peter and Vince tested it. You guys tested it, Tom, right early on, and actually really fell in love with the look of the Alexa, but because it wasn't 4K, it wasn't conforming to the signal.
I remember that was my vote.
Yeah, right.
I voted for the Alexa.
Because it has this cinematic quality, it really does. And anyway, so they were resistant to play the K game until the large format cameras came out. So that was the reason. And the other thing is that I find in some of the other cameras that the skin tones can be a little tough to track and keep natural looking. So this, with the dynamic range of the Alexa, you can't beat it for those kinds of things. And as tough as we are on the actors sometimes with the lighting, I think that's the least they could do is at least try to make their skin tones look good, right?
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
And that camera's only
you've also been able to shoot some 35 millimeter and some 16 reversal and some the shot with Dan Sackheim. What did you do there? That there was a shot in season 3, I think. With Chuck, right?
Yeah.
Chuck, during the lawnmower scene, I think.
Yeah, well, the one right after, yeah. So when they're having dinner in the house, and she's got the cell, his ex-wife's got the cell phone, and she's kind of coming at him, and he's freaking out about the fact that he had no idea she had this battery in the house. So Dan had this idea about wanting to do something very, off the beaten path for that particular shot, and I pitched him on a couple of ideas, and one of the things that I had worked with a few years before was a hand crank 2C. I don't know if you remember the old 2Cs, right? Yeah. Yep. So this literally was only advanced with a hand crank, and so we could wind it forward and backward, and that was the thing that we thought would really pay off, would be the triple exposures and stuff like that. So what you see in the show is literally what was on film. There's no sweetening it or adding anything to it. It literally is what we shot. So it's good. It was a lot of fun. I mean, Matt, I had Paul who's operating the camera, and Matt, our other operator, was actually handling, operating the crank. So they're both in on it, which was very cool. And I want to shout out to both of those guys. They're just absolute artists, both of them. I mean, everybody is, but they're the ones that impress me a lot and are closest to me all the time, kind of pitching ideas and stuff.
Oh my God. Yeah. And again, as a director, you just have, these guys set up shots, and it just saves your bacon so many times in the editing room. You're like, oh my God, thank God they thought of that angle or did this. And it's, director gets all the credit, but it's these guys, busting their butts, looking around for interesting shots.
Well, look at, we're looking at the Emmy Awards coming up here in the next couple of weeks. We look at the writers like Tom and Gordon and all the writing staff. I mean, they're up there for awards and cinematography, all this stuff. Everything contributes to what the success of this show is. I mean, you just can't take one person out of that whole wheel and, say that, okay, it's all because of this person. It's like a band, right? The band breaks up and the lead singer thinks, I'm going to be a success and go on my own, and their albums suck. But they get back together, they put a record out, and it goes platinum, right? It's just, you have to be the team, and it's a fantastic team. And there's more questions coming in as well, too. This could be for both of you in this case. Let me see, where was it about? Okay, I lost one. I'm going to come back to it in a second. But Karina asks, whose idea is it to shoot some of the characters in scenes with the actors slightly off center? Seems deliberate. That's a very good question. As opposed to, tight shot, well, not too many tight shots, but deliberately off center.
Yeah, heavy to one side or the other. That's usually, if it's a combination, it could be. I mean, that was very early on. I think it was when Vince and Peter were talking about a look for the show. That was something they were interested in and carried over. There was sort of they didn't do a Bible, but they had shots that they were interested in copying and looking at, and certainly off-center things and something framed heavy to one side. That was a style they wanted to introduce early on. Something that we kind of lost. Early on, they were very interested in long 70 style zooms, and I think we dropped away from that. We don't do that as much anymore, but it comes up every once in a while.
Yeah, no, we've done a couple of them that have really been special and fun, and yeah, absolutely. But you're right, they don't come along very often. I mean, it's so hard to zoom that far and have the time for it, right? I mean, you really have to have. And then this is a show that gives time for anything, right? And we have a hard time finding it, so it's takes its time and really lets the show develop, the story develop. But I mean, part of it, I would say that we actually balance those two things, with off-center frames versus even sometimes, very symmetrical stuff, to the point where sometimes, like, Paul's got a tape measure out there measuring the edges of the matte box to whatever it is that we're centered on. So it's a good balance. And a lot of it has to do with Paul and Matt, that they both have great taste in frames like that, and they pitch a frame and we go for it,
Yeah. And that's, again, such a lifesaver on set when you shoot one side of a character talking, and then you want to go to the other side and match it, and they'll know what to do, how they have to frame it, so that when you're in a cutting pattern, it doesn't. Because if something is off, it just you'll notice it in editing, and it's just not unappealing. But these guys frame it up in a way that you just feels smooth when you're cutting back and forth between characters talking.
Agreed. Who's really good at that is Paul, because he's, Paul told me a story one time. He actually did Horatio Hornblower in England, and they only built one side of the ship, and so anytime they had to be on the port side, they had to flip everything, all the signage and the wardrobe and everything backwards, and they shot it backwards. Talk about getting screwed up to which side of the line you're supposed to be on, right? Oh my gosh, my God. Anyway,
That's
I was
amazing.
blown away. So I've never doubted his screen direction since. Like, He's like, okay, you win.
That's hard. It's so hard to keep track of. I mean, that's when I do storyboards, I will have to write down, okay, character looks from left to right, so that I can just look at it and have a visual reminder, because I cannot, it's so hard to keep track of all that stuff.
Yeah. I like the fact how you talked about doing some of these things on purpose, like in, and Marshall, I'm sure you agree with this with photography, anything in life as well too. You know the rules and you break it, but photography, the rule of thirds, where you're going to put your horizon, where you're going to put your subject. And I tend to do that a lot of times as well too. I can't stand when I do any kind of demonstration videos of filming myself dead center. I know I'm dead center in my little window right now, but I always like to be either far left or far right. I mean, I'm kind of, leaving room for if I want to put some overlays, I'm thinking ahead, but I like to be off frame. And to me, that's just a comfort zone. So it's kind of cool when we get to see that. Not everyone's like tight zoomed in the dead center of the screen, and you use it very creatively. So.
Yeah, well, one of the other things that we that I was first kind of informed by Michael Slovis in one of our first dinners when I was on Breaking Bad, that because he and I both came from CSI, which was it was kind of a smoke and mirror situation, but was everything is based in the story, that's driven by story. So a lot of those off-center frames oftentimes will have something in that other side that's telling a story point. So that's something that we really strive for, that those frames aren't just interesting to be interesting, but they actually have a story point to them.
Yeah. Here's a question in the chat, and this goes to either one of you, and I'm sure you both witness this, so either one can comment. This is from Lori. Kim and Jimmy, are they really smoking cigarettes in the scenes? I'm assuming they probably don't.
They have it's something else, right? I wish I knew the exact answer. I know the prop department. I know they're not real cigarettes.
They're not real cigarettes. There's some sort of herb thing that smells even more disgusting than a real cigarette.
So yeah, it's a prop department trick.
Okay.
But it is but they are smoking it for sure.
They're smoking
absolutely.
it. Yeah. They're inhaling, but hopefully it's healthier than real cigarettes.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
Here's something that goes really
just
deep.
like Jimmy's not drinking real pee. They're smoking something.
Yeah. Oh man, that was something else, right?
And I don't know with Bob, he likes to get into character.
And I'm not sure whose interview I saw. I'm not sure if it was Gold Derby, maybe with you, Tom, or when you did the Gold Derby interview. Somewhere I saw this, and I wish I could give full credit. It might have even been one of Peter Gould's interviews, but talking about that. And when that was written, they were worried that it would come off as comical, right? And when he would drink from it, and it didn't, and it come off really, really, genuine, and like almost like you're feeling him really going through the pain while Kim's having to drink a water or whatever from the back home in the safe confines of the apartment. So that was very cool. But getting into another question from the fans, this is deep, and I'm going to pronounce this name wrong. Casa de Fuego. How much did you have to dig into your past to shoot the Mesa Verde commercial on 16 millimeter?
Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't get past the name. Can you repeat the question?
Okay. And I know I'm going to say...
It was how was it shooting the 16 millimeter reversal film on the Mesa Verde commercial?
It was a lot of fun. I pitched really hard to go with the 8 mil, but it was just a little too stylized. But here's the thing. I mean, that one was very interesting because the only lab that's processing reversal film now, 16 mil, is a small lab in LA called 8 millimeter Pro. And one of the things they won't guarantee when they'll get the footage to you, and they won't guarantee that it'll even survive. So one of the things we had to do was shoot the commercial side by side with both the Alexa and the 16 millimeter to make sure we had something. And then in addition to that, the film camera, we were actually using the other Alexa to shoot the monitor that it was being transmitted on, so that the editors had something that they could start cutting while they waited for the footage. So yeah, both cameras were working, one shooting a monitor and one shooting side by side with the film camera. But everything worked out, and they were able to use it. And
because that commercial had to play in a scene a week later that was shot on stage, so that it took the editors. They had to cut that thing, and when they got the developed film, be able to cut it in, pretty effortlessly, hopefully, to get it to set to shoot the scene where Jimmy's tearing Kevin Wachtel a new one.
Yeah, right.
Do all the graphics with the bare genitals and all that.
So good, so much.
It was fantastic.
But yeah, it was great. It worked out really well, and I love that stuff. Anytime we get a chance, I mean, we're all suckers for bringing the film back. It's we owe a lot to that look, and it's just so beautiful and stylized, and it really puts you in the time and place, and it really does. And that kid was so great.
You talked about Michael Slovis, who I love. I love that guy. Can you talk about other cinematographers, even if we don't know who they are, who may have influenced you in your life and maybe have stolen a little bit? I've certainly stolen from many writers. Any lighting styles that you've sort of adopted as your own?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would say, Laszlo Kovacs was a big influence. I mean, those guys were cowboys from the beginning, and changed the way that, started with the talk about the 2C, right? I mean, they were shooting films on that thing. So kind of bucking the system, which I've always thought was really cool. Empire of the Sun, which is one of my favorite films of all time. Scandi, I'm sure. And then the guys that I worked with, John Flynn and Levy Isaacs, and all the guys that I learned from, which I really, really learned a lot from. And they were all big influences on me. So
I read a great article by Vittorio Storaro a while ago in American Cinematographer that his use of color and giving color meaning, which we do a lot on the show. Red is very important. Is that something you think about when you're lighting the set? When you're lighting, do you give meaning to any of the color, or is it a feel? Do you try to go more realistic for the location, or do you have a feel that color means something when you're lighting a set?
Definitely affects a person's mood and the tone of the scene. But I'm more of a stickler for realism. Like I can't ever bring myself to ramrod my style down in an overhead fluorescent lit office or a day exterior. I'm a very kind of naturalistic. But when we get the opportunities to do fun stuff, where we're out on that dump, shooting into the backlights and the city lights, using that as our separator, or some of the other night exteriors that we've done. Yeah, absolutely. We'll take the license and we'll go for it for sure.
Here's a question from the fans as well, too. And this could go to both of you as well. I know this is probably directed to Marshall, but Tom, I know you're out there in both of the elements as well, too. This is from Lori. Would you rather shoot in the cold or the heat? I know you get both.
But Marshall, that's your question, because you were in the test for 5 months shooting episode 5.
I guess I would, if I have to answer that, I would definitely say I probably would rather shoot in the cold. I'm not a big fan of the cold, but the heat, man, it's a whole new level of misery that.
Well, what's worse on the cameras? Would cold drain your battery faster, or is it harder on the camera equipment, or is it?
It does a little bit, but not. I wouldn't say it really affects us that much. And we have so many batteries in the way. We're got so many backups. But the heat is another thing that's very hard. I mean, there's a lot of the cameras, especially early on in the 4K, the processors were doing everything they could to keep up, and there were 3D printed trays where they were putting dry ice in the top, trying to cool the tops of these cameras and things just to keep them going, because they would just shut down.
Yeah,
they'll just shut down. So,
probably easier to keep your cameras warm than to cool them in the heat.
Absolutely.
So the cold it is. There's your answer.
Yeah. I agree with that 100%.
Although I did get screwed one time on a show in Toronto, as a matter of fact.
My way.
I had no idea that Kino flows will actually dim down in the cold, and we were shooting in 20 below. It was January in Toronto, and I had lit this shot and I ran inside, and we were shooting. We were like 9 takes in, and I'm like, something is not right. And I finally went out there and realized that the key light had gone down about 2 stops, and it was like, got to go back and get another take of that if we could, please, because somebody screwed. I was too much of a chicken to come out and double check my key light.
Oh man.
But anyway.
Well, that's something that people who are not in the film industry maybe don't realize, that you're dealing with color temperatures. Between the sun and light bulbs and fluorescent lights, and that's a challenge that you have to deal with. And I love that there was a scene that we shot together back in what episode was it? It was the chair salesman guy. It was 307, And we had this big furniture department, and you were willing to mix color temperatures in the bulbs and just have, orange bulbs, blue bulbs, which was great to do. How often, do you usually try to do a balance, right? But how often do you let something go blue in the background or orange or?
It just has to fit it story-wise, right? I mean, that was just so perfect for the place. Put up your feet, put your feet up. Remember, you kept switching it around. But anyway, sorry. Yeah. So to me, it all has to be driven. Back to Slovis again, and that lesson. It's got to be driven by the story, and that just made such sense that it was so much fun to embrace. To find, because we shot at it in a store that was not too unsimilar to one that guy potentially owned in the story, and it was perfect. It was perfect.
Speaking of Michael Slovis, these California wildfires, I felt like the other day that I was living in a Michael Slovis Mexico filter.
Right.
It was so
the color.
And I love
So
that
good.
you have found, when our characters are near the border, that you found a balance between the United States look and then Michael's Mexico yellowish orange filter.
Yeah, the tobacco is a tobacco
filter.
We dialed back on that just a little bit anyway for the Mexico look, but yeah, keying in on that and taking it. But I love that, in Bagman, we were able, he got so close to the border. He was still on our side, but he was so close. I didn't want to have, there's that famous one on if you Google it, right? The Breaking Bad border shot. You can literally see somebody painted it down the border fence, on the left side's Mexico and it's got the color on the right side. It's white. So anyway.
That's hilarious. Here's a couple questions coming in as well, too. Two good ones from Michelle and from It's Saul Goodman on Twitter, one of our favorite Twitter accounts. This is a good question too from Michelle. She says, the scene with half of Jimmy, this would be in the courthouse, and it's an infamous scene. The scene with half of Jimmy's face in real time and the other half in the mirror to make a whole face. Was that a trick, and how was that achieved?
No, I mean, literally, I'm trying to remember.
That was Melissa's episode, Melissa Bernstein.
Yeah, I think
I feel like, not to take anything from Melissa, I feel like that was a Peter pitch shot, though.
There you go. See, I'm not privy to that stuff, but yeah, I mean, she came to
I hope I'm right.
I think, with an idea about it, and it was just fantastic. Those surfaces are the way those surfaces are in that set that we shoot all the time, and we've used the reflection a little bit, but not as effective. I mean, that was so cool. That was really fun.
That became the marketing department saw that shot, just was like, we got to use this in all of our ads.
Yeah,
it perfectly summed up his mental state.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that's the fellow I'm going to talk about in a second here, the Saul Goodman account. I think that's his profile picture that they've used as well too. But the question from Saul Goodman Twitter says, my question is to Marshall. Discuss how it was. This is a great question. Discuss how it was to film that beautiful time lapse of Jesse tearing through Todd's apartment in El Camino. Insane. That was so awesome.
Well, that's another one. That was actually pitched by Judy Ree, our production designer. And she had this idea that she pitched to Vince about Jesse being kind of a rat in a maze. And so what her pitch was to actually build the set in the aspect ratio that we were shooting in 2:3:9 so that it would fit perfectly in the frame. What we went through to do that was pretty elaborate. But I mean, I remember early on, we actually built that set. They taped it all out on the floor, and I was up in the perms with my phone trying to make sure it would fit in the frame and stuff. But overnight, one night, as we left that set, we'd been on it for a couple of weeks, they pulled everything out of the ceiling, all of the ceiling panels, all of the ropes, hundreds and hundreds of ropes and cables and stuff, cleared them all out so we could put the camera up there and do that shot. And it was just absolutely magical. I mean, it's one of those things that just so much fun.
And how do you light something like that? Because you're taking away your overhead. It's just everything through all the windows. And I mean, were there rooms in the center that just had bulbs or hidden somewhere, or how was that achieved?
No, we lit it pretty much how we'd lit the rest of that searching scene. I mean, it had become day, so that was the one kind of forgiveness. But we did have a little bit of ambience from the top just to kind of fill it in a teeny bit. But my only regret about that shot, and I didn't think about it until afterwards, was not moving the sun during the shot so that the sun, and then of course I didn't see it until afterwards. And
I did not notice.
Yeah. But anyway, that's all on stage. We obviously, we have 50-foot ceilings in one of the greatest stages I've ever shot. And I mean, it's incredible in there. And they're, clean and beautiful. But anyway, so that's where that kind of came from. And obviously Vince, developed it and riffed on it. It took us, gosh, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours to get that shot. I think that was our last day before the Christmas break, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
Marshall, question for you. I'm going to combine two questions. This is one I had on my list, and we can combine two here. What is one of the coolest shots you can walk away from saying, like, in your time with Better Call Saul? And we could say El Camino as well too, but we'll say strictly with Better Call Saul for now. What was one of the coolest shots you've pulled off, whether it was somewhat accidental, on purpose, got lucky, and what was one of the most difficult, so like maybe almost a nightmare to pull off, but you did it. So maybe one of the coolest moments that you can recall, and maybe a nightmare as well.
Well, the interesting thing about the nightmares is they're the ones that sneak up on you and you don't see coming. So they come along fairly often, and it's just a battle to get back to even normalcy sometimes. But so I can't necessarily come up with a great example of that one. Although maybe the inside of the restaurant, the ice cream shop that we shoot in sometimes, right? I can't remember the name of it offhand, but anyway. That big window that's there, we end up creating daylight out there oftentimes when we lose the light, and we're constantly bringing daylight through there and so the grips have to build a big return so that it looks like it's sky out there, and we're fading color into the sky. And anyway, so that was the first time that one kind of reared its ugly head. That was a good battle. But I would say El Camino, I think that top shot, probably the shot that Tom brought up earlier, I was really proud of that. It's those little things that kind of really sell things, the heat underneath the lens. That one, was a lot of fun. There's a lot of them. It's hard to necessarily pin them down exactly, but yeah, that was a good one. I mean, even the crane shot. Well, actually, there's two more. The crane shot of the ice cream cone on the sidewalk, which led in and out of the ant sequence, and also a shot I did with Peter, which I still talk about as being the one that we probably was the most collaborative, and we talked about for weeks and weeks and weeks, and we finally got there. First take,
lantern shot,
yeah, exactly. So it's the opening, it's the teaser for Lantern, which is 310, and it was we had to have a periscope on the camera. Essentially, it was a shot that traveled about 150 feet across the backyard and into that tent and into the lantern, about 2.5, 3 inches off the ground, and they had to build the tent so that it could pull apart as the crane went in. And I mean, it was a big Megillah. And it was one of those things, we'd been talking about it for weeks. We just had no idea it was ever, no belief that it was going to ever work the first time. And the first take was perfect. And we all looked at each other and we're like, uh-oh, like, what do we do now? Anyway, so we did a bunch more, but
here's a good one here too. And someone we all miss, I'm sure, from the cast and crew to the fans and everywhere in between. From Karina, she says, how flattering was it to Marshall to have Robert Forster say he was a big fan of your work?
It was incredible. And that guy, just such a class act. I mean, everybody is on the show. He'll always have a special place in my heart that I happened to be showing up at the location the first time he was pulling in, and I could see he was talking to the driver that was dropping him off, and the guy was pointing at me and he was looking at me. And anyway, so come to find out that he was a big cinematography fan, kind of a student of it, was a big Haskell Wexler fan. Haskell took him under his wing on Medium Cool and taught him all kinds of stuff. So he goes out of his way to come and meet the cinematographer and talk a bit about cinematography. And I was just so impressed with that guy. I mean, that was such a loss. It really broke my heart. But he was just a class act, absolutely a class act.
What do you think, Thomas, while working with him?
I didn't get to work with him directly, but I met him during Breaking Bad in Peter's episode. I happened to be on stage and I got to meet him, and a lovely man. And we important to the Gilliverse, to our show, and to so many. I mean, such a history. I mean, what can you say about the guy? I mean, Jackie Brown was a film we talk about all the time in the room.
Yeah.
So we loved him. We were very excited that we got him on the show. There's always this dream. We want to, during casting, we want a Robert Forster type. We'll, say that, and then we get him. It's just like, you can't believe, if he had gone back 20 years and asked me, would I be working with these actors, of this caliber, I wouldn't believe it.
Well, it goes back to what Marshall was saying earlier, talking about Rockford Files and things of that nature. You can picture him as the Rockford. He's like the guy that all the guys want to be and the women all love. Just the charisma. And unfortunately, I don't know a lot about his career other than the Jackie Browns. I might have seen him in a couple other things, but Jackie Brown was probably my first introduction to him. And I mean, just insane, awesome, a great character. And it was nice, obviously, getting to, be part of that, the Gene segment there a little bit one more time, and of course with El Camino was very nice for everyone.
And that was, Marshall, you shot that during El Camino.
We did.
You were doing a shot, and we were breaking the season while El Camino was shooting, and we had the scene, and we thought, oh, let's get it while you guys are in the vacuum store.
Yeah, which was just, such an amazing stroke of luck. I mean, nobody knew, obviously, but yeah, we I'll never forget when Melissa called me and said, "What do you think about it?" And I was like, "Let's do it." I was in, and it was a lot of fun, and it's to be able to bring him, to the episode was just such a neat thing, such a great moment, and a nice way to send him off too. He's so good.
Yeah. Here, we talked about Michael Slovis several times here tonight. Obviously, everyone is a major fan from all of us combined here. But Nat says, Michael Slovis jumped into directing. Are you thinking about it?
No.
No?
I was lucky enough from when I was working on CSI. They invited me to direct, and I ended up directing 6 or 7 episodes of CSI, which I hated every minute of. I love what I do. I am thankful to have walked a mile in the shoes, and honestly for the residuals too, because it's fantastic. But
it's network money.
Yeah, right. And replay all over the world. But it just wasn't my thing. I'm committed to the camera and the photography. I always have been. And so it was great to do and experience and really know what the directors go through every day. But it's just not for me.
That's right. Well, Tom and I talked about this off the air. We were doing a test call, and I think it applies here. Know where your strengths are, and you could do something over here and spend some time over here and do that, and maybe you're not going to be so good at it. And I will look at you and think you probably could be very good at it, but your specialty is the photography and capturing what we see. So focus on that, and there's nothing wrong with saying no once in a while, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm. Especially as I kind of was getting older and realizing I got to do stuff that makes me happy. And this makes me smile. I look forward to going to work every day, especially on Saul. I mean, it's just so much fun. So I hated everything. Like I said, I was wound up and tight and stomach was in knots. It's just not something I enjoyed. So anyway.
Is there ever a scene that you've done where you thought, where you look back on the show and think, oh, I want to light that differently. Wish I had done a scene differently. Or you pretty, I mean, there's no scene to me that stands out as being something to redo, but I didn't know if there was something that you thought, oh, I would do that differently now, or.
Yeah, I'm sure there've been a few things where I wish I'd brought a little bit more contrast. I mean, the great thing is I kind of get a do-over in the color timing anyway, because you can manipulate so much, and we have such a strong signal and such a great group that we have a lot to work with. So I can always kind of get, if I missed the boat the first time, I can always kind of get it there, especially with power windows and stuff. I mean, you can set a double on the wall now that you couldn't do before. Anyway, so I can't remember. I know there are a few, but yeah,
well, what's amazing is that there's, we get limited time to do this stuff. And what you do in that time is incredible. I mean, it's just your talent and the talent of your crew. It's amazing what can be done, because they're all, you take some of these frames and you want to hang them on the wall. They're so beautiful. And it's like, you don't realize it's a scramble. It's like you get a 12-hour day trying to jam it all in, and you want to get done on time so people don't get tired and hurt. And so it really is amazing what you do. And it doesn't, nothing looks rushed. Which is fantastic. And when you are directing and doing this, you feel like you're going 100 miles an hour.
I feel the same way. In the morning when we get those images, I can't be. It puts such a smile on my face. They nowadays send the footage up a high-speed transfer, or even even sending the decks. But we were last year, especially, we were coloring in Albuquerque, doing the dailies color, and then sending the stuff to post, so we could get the images of the dailies the next morning. And nothing puts a smile on my face being able to go through that while we're setting up the first shot and then looking, because it all pays off, and you're not rushed when you're actually looking at them, and it's like, what, hey, we did okay yesterday. But it's tough. I mean, that's one thing. It's funny, Peter says that too all the time, that's one resource that we can never have enough of, and we can't ever have any more of. It's a finite amount of time, and no matter how many toys, or no matter what you have, it's still that ticking clock. So you got to make the best of it.
Not once watching the show have I ever had that feeling of, I'm a big Austin Powers fan. I love, Mike Myers is a fellow Canadian as well too. But I've never had that feeling of rolling out a little, a back screen, Southern California. It's like everything seems so legit. It's just, and I know there's tricks, as we talked about at the top of the show, but everything seems so believable. And when you're not looking for those mirrors and the smoke and the tricks, us as the audience at home is, and as you've said as well too, if you don't know what it is, we've done our job right. Yeah,
well, but in all fairness, like I've done shows where we're scrambling to get a commercial in a day, and we have 10 days to do an episode, which it's a pretty fair amount of time. Now, granted, we're doing a lot, but it's not like we don't have enough of it. They definitely give us enough. It's just it's never enough. It's never no matter what project you're doing, you never feel like you have enough time. And it seems like no matter how big they get, you always feel that way, right?
Yeah.
It's a 9-day schedule. Some episodes got up to 10, and then other episodes got a little more. But they could give us 30 days, and we still find ways to struggle to make it in that time period.
For sure.
I want to know if you're going to demand now, so since you're an Emmy nominee, you're going to demand that amount of prep on every episode.
Yeah,
that was one of the weird benefits of being directing after Vince Gilligan, was that his 508 shoot kept expanding, which gave me more and more prep time, which meant being able to go to the trampoline park with my kids a couple of days.
I can see Tom having a bigger list of demands, like a Van Halen writer now, if he happens to win. No brown M&Ms in my dressing room, my trailer.
That's right.
All this kind of stuff. And my Perrier has to be at such and such a degree of temperature. I'm going to go back to some questions backwards in the chat. There's some really good ones here as well too. This is from Nat. Says, do you think that new technologies in post-production are somewhat polluting cinematographers' work? Like, take some of these big budget, I don't want to center out like Michael Bay or anything like that, but some of these things where there's just so much emphasis on what you can do post. Do you agree that maybe there can be some pollution there?
Well, yeah, and it's all to a certain extent. It's kind of hard to tell exactly which ones have kind of been saved that way or done that way. I mean, I hear rumor of, because I've been shooting and I don't hang out with other cinematographers on the set and really get to watch them work, but you always hear about the occasional person who doesn't necessarily do a whole lot lighting wise on set to kind of manipulate things, and they do it all in post. And it's amazing to me. It never ceases to amaze me how much you can get away with doing that. But that's not something we necessarily rely on. And it is a little bit of a cheat, I think, on some level. But again, you only have a certain amount of time, and it's a commitment one way or the other. You're going to do it on set, or you're going to do it in post. So we have a specific amount of time, and I kind of know how much I can do in those. Yeah, we're doing some power windows, we're darkening walls and ceilings and floors and all of our favorite things. But yeah, it can be overused, it feels like, but I think used properly, it's a fantastic tool.
Yeah,
I'm all in. Yeah,
moderation.
And just like the Charlie Chaplin shot where he rolls up to the edge, sometimes we get bailed out by our effects guys, or CG guys will do amazing stuff for us. Like the scene where Mike shoots Werner just felt like we wanted, what was shot on the night was great, but we just had the feeling of we want to be wider. And then we took the real frame, our visual effects guys took the real frame and then built a whole sky around it. So what you're seeing in that particular shot is mostly CG with what was shot on the day in the bottom right corner. It's just, it's amazing what can be done.
The benefit of shooting in high res too, when you're shooting such high res, you can really zoom in or zoom out?
Yeah, we've kind of, unfortunately, when we went to the Alexa, we don't as much as we could on some of the other cameras. We would shoot 6K and even a little bit more, and have a little bit of room to reframe. But yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's then you get the dynamic range back though, so you can do shots like that and keep it dark, which is another thing that I love so much. I mean, that was a shot that, talk about getting lucky. We had one condor because they couldn't come out on the dump. We couldn't bring any heavy equipment out there. That was a half mile away, and we had a 9K in it that was spotted in as hard as it could. That was streaking across that bathroom background, just picked up just a teeny bit of the moisture in the air and separated him enough. It was like,
I love that.
Anyway,
I love it.
Better lucky than good, I always say.
Here's a comment and a question. So the comment, and this is obviously, I know we're all going to agree on this, but the Saul Goodman Twitter says, Better Call Saul has the best cinematography of any show. The entire show is art. And we talked about, like Tom said, every frame is a photo. You could literally pause that show on a good, HD, TV and have a postcard. So I agree with that. And I know I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, but Rastasarius. And we talked a little bit about Chuck McGill there for a little bit, but could you talk about shooting Chuck's condition? That's a very good question.
Well, honestly, I didn't get to do that much. I mean, I love that inside of that set, and I was really terrified when it went away. I was like, wow. I mean, we do some amazing images in there. It was so much fun to light and work with Michael McKeon. It was just incredible to watch. But so I was terrified, but I didn't. That was all Arthur and the guys that kind of really did that in the first two seasons. They really kind of developed a style and a look for him and the affliction that he was going through. So I can't take a lot of credit for that. That a lot of that stuff was already pre-established. But and again, Michael was just to watch him work is just incredible. I mean, yeah.
Here's a fun one, Tom, and you comment on this as well too. And I know, and I mean, this is a fan theory. This is being brought up by Nat, and I know obviously we can't comment on any things that are in the future here too. And I never heard about this fan theory. I love watching some of these YouTube videos and see the fan theories, what's going to happen, and that kind of stuff as well too. But Nat says a fan theory, and we talked about Robert Forster just 10, 15 minutes ago. The fan theory is Ed the Disappearer is Kim's dad.
I'm going to nip that one in the bud and just say no.
Yeah, okay.
It's not Kim's dad.
No, okay, there we go.
I can comment on anything that's coming up because I don't know squat.
That's right. That's right.
I got fan theories of my own.
I'm going to, usually I don't want to comment on things, but I'm going to say no.
Okay, there you go. That's good. Squash it. And that's the thing. It's got to be awesome for you guys. And when I say you guys, everyone at the headquarters, all these fan theories that people are so invested that they're connecting dots, and they think they're and sometimes it could be on the right path. Other times they're far out of left field. But it's so amazing and flattering that they're spending, and I'm one of those people. I'm theorizing and hypothesizing at what's going to happen, but that shows how invested we are all in the show.
Yeah, it certainly helps the storytelling. I mean, in 509, I knew people are expecting Kim Wexler to die, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna just show the clues that yes, it's going to happen in this episode, and then take it away at the end.
Yeah.
So it's great to have fans who are invested, but it's also great to manipulate their feelings over that because sometimes people will come up with the wildest things trying to guess what we're going to do, and that's the great thing about the way we work is that we don't know as writers what's coming next, so we get ourselves in a corner, and then we're like, oh shit, how do we get out of this? And if it's not easy for us to, a group of 7 people to figure out in a week's time, then when we do come up with the answer, hopefully it is surprising. You're going to have that 10% at home going, oh, I knew that was going to happen anyway, but hopefully it doesn't happen that often.
Well, hopefully when this is all said and done, you can put us in touch with Marie Schrader's Dave, because we're all going to need some counseling when this is all said and done.
I know I'll need counseling when this is over. I'm going to be very sad when we break this group up.
I'm sure.
But your guys' attention to detail goes to a whole new level, though. So I mean, that's what I think that really invests them, because potentially there is. I mean, I was amazed to find out. Is that true that Lalo's wearing Hector's belt buckle from the scene with the two little cousins? Because somebody had
I saw that.
I think that is true.
I was blown away. I was like, "Wow!" See, this is stuff
I don't know where that came from. I don't know if it was Peter or our costume department. I don't know who decided to do that. But
that was good. A lot of people were centering on that one. And we've got the Salamanca brothers coming up in 2 weeks as well, too, which is going to be a lot of fun. That'd be cool. Here's a good question before we're about ready to wrap up in about 2 minutes. This was from Andrea, and I forget the original question. But before we ask her a question as well, too, I noticed bobbleheads.com are in the chat as well tonight, too. They're going to be working with us to give away some really cool Saul Goodman and Better Call Saul action figures and bobbleheads. So big thank you to bobbleheads.com, Royal Baubles.
When are they doing the Tom Schnauz life-size doll?
Yeah,
you know what?
I want one. I want to be number one.
Guys, I'm not going to promise. I'm not going to make any promises, and they're listening, but they do custom bobbleheads. So look them up at bobbleheads.com. You can get all. They got the Hector Salamanca. They've got the Kim Wexler, which we're giving away right away this month. They've got Jimmy. They've got Mike, which is out of stock at the moment, and they've got Gus Fring as well too. But we'll I'll get some good high-res photos of you guys. Maybe we can get a custom made of each one of you guys. I can probably make it happen.
Right? That'd be awesome.
We'll do it. But Andrew was asking earlier about the scene with the marriage scene. And that was kind of here again, it's a courtroom type scene. Lighting may or may not be difficult. But what were your thoughts on filming that scene of the marriage?
Oh boy, we wanted to give it a kind of a different vibe and a different feel from other courtrooms in there. That was kind of the biggest thing. He wanted it to feel like a different place that we haven't been in every nook and cranny in that building yet, and that this had some sort of kind of special quality to it, because that was, you didn't necessarily know what was happening as they were talking about it until we kind of got to that moment. So they gave us a nice window in there. We were able to give it, a little bit of sunlight and give it, kind of a fun quality. And, I just still love, the photos that they were taking with the old Kodak cameras and stuff. I mean, I don't even know where they found those things. Right? They even exist anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
That's another compliment. Yeah, I can't even say the word compliment to Marshall. We did pickup scenes in 410 of the Super Lab, which we hadn't shot in because Giancarlo had broken his leg, and we got pushed to the end of the season. And I said to Marshall, can we just make it look different than the way it's been? And he came up with this whole new lighting plan that is like, oh my God, this is the space. It's like, how much can you do in here? And he found another way to light it. It was great.
I want to tell you, okay, so do we have a second to elaborate on that story?
Yep.
So he was not allowed to move. He had, his leg in a cast, and as an actor was not allowed to move. So Tom had designed this amazing shot where we start over the shoulder on him, or sideways on him. We pan off and we go up to.
It was Gus. Gus started in frame. He
That's right.
He was touching the wall of the Super Lab. We panned off of him, and then we followed Gus over his shoulder as he walked to Gail Bedecker, and we did a switcheroo with a lookalike. And
so that was a photo double that walks.
Manager was adamant about, do not let Giancarlo walk. He is not allowed to walk on set. He can only move with the assistance of of help, and he should not be walking in the scene. And I guess he was off set watching this on the monitor, and he freaked out because he got fooled by the switcheroo.
Yeah, he came in and started yelling like, "What are you guys doing? I told you, because everybody goes the extra mile on the set." And we knew Giancarlo, if you'd asked him to try
he wanted to walk. He was like, "I'm fine. I could walk. I'll do it." But it was like, for legal purposes, do not walk with your broken leg.
Yeah.
Seth was so freaked out. Yeah, I was convinced he was walking across the stage. Anyway, that's how we knew the shot was working.
That's great. We're just about out of time, but I just want to ask one more question from Michelle. She says, and this is good. There's a lot of Chuck McGill stuff coming up, which is great. I love Michael McKean. I'm a Spinal Tap fan, so I go back to that a lot. David Hubbins. But she says, when Chuck is walking to the payphone in the space blanket, the super colorful street with all the lights, was that a real street? Based on some other answers, I'm thinking smoke and mirrors. Good question.
No, that was a real street. That's the street that the theater is on. It's a well-known street in Albuquerque, and it's got a lot of neon and color on it. It was exaggerated because of for him, because he had to make that trip, and that was the way to kind of really sell his agony in that trip. But that was all there, and that was a fun scene. Another one. It's like, we got the Vericams out. That was early on in the Vericam stuff, and we're really able to kind of take advantage of it on that street, and get a lot of background and depths and all those colors and stuff. I'm trying to talk about Charlie Chaplin. because there was the theater across the street. We actually ended up on one of the phone shots. Oh no, it's actually Buster Keaton is in the window there behind him. They had a big poster on the wall, and it was like, oh my God, how did that happen? But it's the weird stuff you find, as you wander around the streets.
Well, that's a cool thing. Like that goes to show you, some of this is real, a lot of it is real, some of it isn't. But we'll never know. As viewers from home, we don't know, and that's a great thing. But as we get ready to wrap up here, I mean, it's been absolute pleasure. I have to watch this back so I can take in all this photography stuff myself too, because I want to make some notes. But just thank you, Marshall, for joining us. I want to go over a few post-show notes here as well too. Coming up next Friday on the 18th, we talked about Kim Wexler. The lovely Ray Seahorn joins us. I had a chance to interview her before Tom joined the program here when I was just doing Rock Shop Live. We've got her coming back. And we'll be talking about her great contributions to the show, as even Bob Odenkirk has said, and a lot of people have said. Season 5 is all about Kim Wexler, so we're looking forward to having her back. Be sure to check us out on Instagram. We're at Inside the Gilliverse as well too. Also, this is something I really want to say: check out both Tom's and Marshall's Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts. We have them linked in the description down below, and my beautiful better half Sandra's been sharing them all evening as well too. Some great behind the scenes photos showing all the stuff that we talked about tonight. The Emmy Awards are coming up Sunday, September 20th. Fingers crossed. I'm not trying to jinx anything. I'm just praying for all of our people at Better Call Saul HQ. All of you really want this for the team. Really, really do. Audio podcast fans, we are everywhere that you can get your podcast. So this episode will be available. I don't rest. I don't sleep. So as soon as I say good night, I'm getting the audio podcast ready to go. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for all kinds of goodness as well too. Gentlemen, this has been great. Tom and I were off for a week because of the break, and it feels like a month. I know for the fans and for myself as well too. Just like you guys are all fans of your own show, I'm a fan of this because I love this show. It's so great to talk to you. It's been a blessing.
Well, I couldn't thank you guys enough. It really is. And I miss being there with you guys, and man, I can't wait to get back to it. I'm so excited, and especially with everything that's going on right now, it really it makes you thankful for what is special. And for me, that place and those people is a pretty special place. So I can't thank you enough.
Well, good luck on your current shoot. I know you're in quarantine in Pennsylvania, so it's we won't give away any details of what you're working on. But I hope it goes well. Knock on wood, and everyone stays safe.
Yeah,
production is a hard thing, and I want you and your crew to get through this successfully. And I'm hoping good vibes to all of you guys.
Well, thank you. Yeah, everybody's working really hard to make it happen, and it's going well. So I think we found a way to keep us all safe. So it's pretty exciting.
Good.
Love to hear that.
Awesome.
That's good. Yeah. Be safe, everyone. Have a fantastic and safe weekend. Come and see us next week as well, too. Same time, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. As Kim Wexler, Ray Seahorn herself joins us, we're going to talk we'll continue this conversation. And I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. Again, be safe out there. And Tom and Marshall, don't go away. I'll say goodbye to you off the air. Everyone, thanks so much. We're glad to be back, and we'll see you again next week. Same time, same channel, same place. Until then, cheers.
Thanks again for tuning into Inside the Gilliverse with Tom and Eric. Be sure to check back each week for more great discussions and interviews with cast and crew from Breaking Bad, El Camino, and Better Call Saul.